Hello, folks. Welcome to the Deep Fried Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Jack Fry, and thanks for listening. Last night, Monday night, the Browns got their ass kicked by the San Francisco 49ers 31-3. Normally, I don't do a show followed up after a show, but gosh, I just had to talk about that game. Also, in Major League Baseball, the playoffs are in full swing as the Rays got a win against the Astros 10-3 to extend their playoff life. They are down 2-1 against the Astros in that best of 5. The Cardinals had a walk-off win against the Braves. That series is tied 2-2. The Nats got a win against the Dodgers 6-1. That series is also tied 2-2. And the Yankees swept the Twins with a 5-1 victory. They move on to the ALCS. The NBA season tips off Tuesday, October 22nd. The early game is the Pelicans at the Raptors on TNT. That's at 8 Eastern. The late game, the one everybody wants to see, is the Lakers at the Clippers on TNT at 10:30 Eastern. That game is way too late and past my bedtime, but I'll definitely be watching the highlights in the morning. LeBron and LeBrow versus Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. That should be amazing. But let me get to this. The Browns were in Santa Clara to play the San Francisco 49ers, and this was not even close. To start the game, the Browns won the toss and elected to receive. The announcers speculated that they wanted to continue their offensive momentum from last week with a win over Baltimore. Well, they got a rude awakening with a 3-and-out. They punted, and with the very first play on offense for the 49ers, Breda took the handoff to the house for 83 yards and was clocked as the fastest player from scrimmage all year at over 22 miles per hour. Dang. The very next drive for the Browns, Baker threw a pick to Richard Sherman. 2 possessions later, Braders caught a TD from Jimmy G. Bam! 14-0. That was the most ruthless and dominant beginning to a game I've seen by the Niners in years. And as you know, I absolutely enjoy the misfortune of Baker Mayfield and the Browns. That was entertaining in every ounce of the word. The defense for the 49ers was flying around everywhere, and Baker looked overwhelmed. The D-line of San Francisco is finally coming into its own, with 4+ first-round picks making their much-needed returns for their high prices and ranked selections. The Browns in the second quarter eventually put together a respectable drive by using their top offensive player of the season in Nick Chubb. A few big runs and a well-orchestrated screen got them to the red zone, where Baker has been heavily struggling this year. The drive ended with a third turnover of the ball that should have been caught by Antonio Callaway. Unfortunately, that interception, albeit not Baker's fault, goes down on his stat sheet. He was responsible statistically for all 3 turnovers in the first half. The Niners capitalized with another rushing TD, this time from Tevin Coleman on a 19-yard scamper. The Niners mean business, and their O-line was opening up huge holes that you could drive a bus through. Then, the Browns tried a 2-minute drill to no avail. Nick Bosa power rushed over 2 O-linemen and sacked Baker Mayfield from his knee. On this play, Bosa celebrated by waving an imaginary flag and planting it into the field. An obvious dig at Baker, who actually planted an OU flag on Ohio State's field back in college on September of 2017 when they played each other. Do you guys remember that? So after that intentional grounding, they had a loss of down, a spot foul, and a 10-second runoff, which ended the second quarter, and at halftime, it was 21-3. Could have been a lot worse, too, as normally sure-footed Robbie Gould missed 2 field goals. Apparently their special teams is on their 3rd long snapper of the season with a rookie holder. The only thing that needed improvement was the kicking game. The 49ers received the second half kickoff and drove the ball with precision, capped off by a Jimmy Garoppolo TD pass to Pro Bowl tight end George Kittle, his first touchdown catch of the season. He started a little bit slow, but I think as the season moves on, he will get back to those great numbers he had last year. They picked up right where they left off. Browns got the ball back, and it was back to work for the 49ers D. They eventually forced a pump, and Richard Sherman, who had that pick in the first half, was mic'd up.
Hey, let's keep it up. It's on us. It's on us. Hey, stay locked in. Y'all playing a hell of a game. Stay locked in, baby. Hey, we got to up the level. We got to turn it up another notch.
He was very vocal in a huge leadership role and praised the young D-line, also telling them, "We cover, you rush." Boy, wasn't that true. Minus the kicking game, which San Francisco didn't really even need, the Niners were running on all cylinders. Everything was working to perfection, and head coach Kyle Shanahan's play calling may have been the most impressive of the night. Yes, the players have to execute, but no football team can overcome bad play calling. We saw none of that. He had the Browns defense on their heels all night, and the third quarter ended 28-3, which was mostly uneventful. In the fourth, Bosa continued his dominance with another sack, while Mayfield and the Browns offense remained overmatched. OBJ didn't do anything to help with 2 dropped balls. His best play was a first-half pass on a trick play that was a complete waste. They used the play to start the game off. It was like the very first offensive play of the game for the Browns. Wouldn't a smart coach save that in his back pocket for a moment in the game where all other options are obsolete? Just plain stupid play calling. The Browns' frustration magnified when they put Odell in to return a punt. And I guess I understand that move. They're trying to get him a chance to make a play, get the ball in his hands. Well, it really backfired, as Beckham ran around in circles until he fumbled the ball and it was recovered by the 49ers special teams. It couldn't get more embarrassing than that, could it? Well, yes, it could. Baker was benched with over 4.5 minutes left in the game. This really wasn't a performance benching, it was more of a beat-down benching, which in itself is degrading. Baker only passed for 100 yards last night on 36%, both career worsts. Absolutely terrible, and I loved it. The Browns had no chance whatsoever. They were outplayed, out-hustled, outsmarted, and outcoached. Are the 49ers for real? Hell yes. They're 4-0 at the Rams next week. Then at the Redskins. Could they be 6-0? Possibly. You know they're going to beat the Skins. They might beat the Rams too. A tough home matchup follows with the Panthers, and then back on the road in Arizona. Then they get the Seahawks, Cardinals, and Packers at home in a 3-game stretch. After that, 2 tough road games in New Orleans and Baltimore, Falcons and Rams at home, with their final regular season game at Seattle, which could be a division championship game. Man, that was an absolute beatdown of the Browns by the 49ers. Offense, defense, special teams. Well, not really the kicking game. In the second half, Gould actually had another kick blocked, so he was 0 for 3 before he made one in the fourth quarter. Gosh, Baker was 8 for 22 for 100 yards and 2 picks. He also fumbled the ball. He has so many turnovers in his start to his career. Why didn't the Browns run the ball more? Nick Chubb was 16 rushes for 87 yards. That's pretty darn good. On the 49ers side, Jimmy G didn't do that much, but he was 20 for 29 for 181 yards and 2 touchdowns, no picks. Matt Breida ran the ball 11 times for 114 yards and a touchdown, most of that rushing coming on that 83-yard run to start the game. Coleman had 16 rushes for 97 yards and a touchdown. This was just ridiculous. Their third running back had 7 rushes for 34 yards, and that's actually a 4.9 yard per carry average. This team ran the ball all over the Browns, as they've been doing to every team this year. Wow, what a game. The defense looked amazing. Bosa had 4 tackles and 2 sacks. Also, he had a forced fumble and a fumble recovery on separate plays. That second overall pick looks to be paying off now. Well, folks, thanks for listening, and if you love my show, or if you just liked it, please like and subscribe. Share it with your buddies if you would. Music has been provided by Ben Sounds. Ho ho, Ben! I love your sounds. Thank you. Goodbye.